Hello everybody and welcome to day 2 of the 30 for 30 Excel VBA course for absolute beginners. Yes, we're going to do 30 minutes a day for 30 days. If you stick with us, if you stick with me, I'm confident you're going to, at the very least, be very impressed with what you can do with VBA. And at the best, well, it could have a career-changing or a life-changing effect on what you're doing. So quick revision of yesterday. What did we do yesterday? Well, we set up Excel for VBA code, of course. And then we looked at creating some organic code, some custom code, we could say, so code that's not recorded in the VBA editor, just flashing up those message boxes. So let me know in the chat, did you play with the code? Remember, play is so important. You've got to take these examples away and just play with them. That's going to help you make massive progress. And today we're going to move on to working with ranges. Excel consists of cells. That's essentially what Excel is, I suppose. So let's look at how to manipulate them, work with them in Excel VBA to get really cool stuff done. Let me know in the chat. Can you see me and can you hear me? Hello, everybody. Let's go through and just say hello. Who's with us today? So Jorgen's with us. The General's with us. The General's here. We've got a salute. Thank you, Jorgen, for joining us. Ahmed is with us from Bahrain. Good to see you, Ahmed. Thank you for tuning in. Lee's with us. Welcome, Lee, from Manchester. Steve's with us. My brother's in the chat. How's it going, Steve? Tuning in from Berlin. Ian is with us, one of our members tuning in from Edinburgh. Andrew is with us. Andrew, welcome. Joanna, welcome again. Jasfin, one of our members. How are you? Tuning in from California. Fantastic. Lee is with us from Sheffield. Welcome, Lee. Bjarne is with us from Denmark. How was my pronunciation of your name, Bjarne? Probably awful, but welcome. Great to have you with us. Greg is with us. Hi, Greg. How are you? Gary is with us, also from Edinburgh. Lee is with us. Jorgen again in the chat, and then and Lee is with us at the bottom there. So thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and in the chat. You know, say hello to some people and let's get to know each other. You know, if you're anything like me, you're spending most of the time at home at the moment. So go ahead, say hello to some people and let's make some friends, if that doesn't sound too kind of cheesy. Right, let's get into it then. So we're working with ranges today. You should be comfortable with creating this setup. And if you're just joining us today, it's probably a good idea, maybe after this stream, to go back to the first stream and revise how to do this. Getting Excel set up for code. So that means being able to view the Visual Basic Editor, but not just that, being able to align the Visual Basic Editor and Excel and the Visual Basic Editor alongside each other. And we said yesterday, this is where it's really useful to have multiple screens, but you can do it fine on a single screen using the Windows key and the arrows, and there will be a Mac equivalent out there. So make sure you're comfortable getting this set up. We're going to go ahead and insert a module. Remember, a module is where code lives. And we're going to first type this mysterious line of code, which is option explicit. We're going to get onto that tomorrow. We're going to learn what it is tomorrow when we're working with variables. Yeah, it gets serious tomorrow. We're going to start working with variables. So let's go ahead, create a routine. And let's just say value to range. Something like that. So an informative name for the macro. That's useful because once you start developing files, you might have 10, 12, maybe 100 macros in a file. You need to be able to understand from looking at the name of the macro what the macro actually does. Now, I want to change the value in A1 to 1. That's our challenge. Change the value in cell A1 to 1. How might you do that? If you watch on the replay, stop the video and have a think about how you might do that. Just giving you a bit of a clue there. So range A1 equals 1. Go ahead and do that. Let me know in the chat. Are you working along with me? Let me say a few more hellos in the chat. Tom Swanson is with us. Welcome, Tom. Gusa is with us again from Spain. Welcome, Gusa. And Daniel Lorente is with us again. Welcome. Thank you for your membership, Daniel, by the way. Danny, you took out a membership yesterday. Mike, welcome. Edwin, welcome. From Minnesota, Nairobi, fantastic. Michelle's with us. How are you, Michelle? Good to see you. Michelle's been following the channel for several years. And thank you, Michelle. I'm doing my best to stay safe in the pandemic. I hope you are as well. Are you working along with me? There's no excuse for not working along. It's about learning the muscle memory, you know, all those movements with your fingers and navigating the screen, the VBA editor. It's just muscle memory. So make sure you're working along. Make sure you're not just watching along. Let's go ahead and play the macro. How do we play a macro? Make sure the cursor is flashing below sub and above end sub. So inside this macro, hit the play button, and what's going to happen? We've got a 1 there. So how might we change this value? Now we're getting into our play mode. We've got a basic concept, and we're going to try to see what else it can do. What if we wanted a value of 30 in there? Play it again, and we can see 30 is in there. What if we wanted a value of 100 in there? Play it again, and then you can continue with more examples. What if we wanted to put a value in a different cell? Say, actually, I want a value to appear in B1. Let's go ahead and try that. Whoops, syntax error there. Just change this letter to B. And there we go. Nice and easy. Now, what about this? What if we wanted a value in multiple cells? Say I wanted a value A3 to A5 or A4 to A6, let's say. Let's see what happens there. A4, then colon, A6. So this is the notation for defining a range with multiple cells in. Now what's going to happen? And we can see the values have gone in there. If we want to reset those to 0, we can see the values have gone in there. So just, again, take a building block, work with it, play with it, build up confidence. So let's take this to the next step, and let's say, add 2 ranges here. So this time we want to add the values from 2 ranges. So let's say the value in A1 and the value in B1, we want to add those up, perform an operation on them using Excel language. We want to add up the values in A1 and B1 and get them to appear here in C1. What do you think? How might we do that? Any ideas in the chat for how to do that? Steve's in the chat saying it worked. Magnificent stuff, Steve. Well done. Yeah, you've got to make sure you celebrate when it's working. I always say punch the air. Make sure you celebrate those moments of success, because believe me, there will be prolonged periods where you don't have a lot of success. That's where you've got to hang in there. Make sure you celebrate that success. Right. So let's add the values in 2 cells, and let's do it this way. So C1 is where we want the value to appear. That's the sum of these 2 cells. And then can you guess what we're going to do here? A1, I'm going to copy and paste, Control C plus Control V. And then we've got B1 here. So I've written 2 macros. These are organic. This is organic code, custom coding, we could say. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hit the F5 key this time. If you just hover over the play button, can you see it says F5? We get a little pop-up there. That's saying you could use the F5 key rather than clicking this button. That's good. That's going to save our fingers. And we're going to see as we go through the course, keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts, so useful for using Excel more efficiently. What's going to happen when we hit the F5 key here? We can see we've got a value of 200 appearing there. Suppose we wanted to do a different operation. What if we wanted to multiply together? So get the product of the values in cells A1 and B1 and get that to appear in C1. Well, multiplication in VBA, you can see rather small there. We use the asterisk. So it's not an X. We actually use an asterisk in Excel VBA. So again, position the cursor, hit play, and we can see we've done the multiplication there. What if we wanted to do a division here? How would we notate that? We can just put the, is that a stroke? I'm not absolutely sure what the word is there. I'm going to change this value to 10. So what value is going to appear here? So 100 divided by 10. Now I'm going to need a spreadsheet. Luckily I've got a spreadsheet here. Going to hit play, and we've got 10 appearing here. And what if we want to do subtraction? So we're just working through our basic arithmetic. What's going to happen when we click play and play this macro? We can see 90 appearing there. So very simple stuff. But I always say to people, if we were to go and watch Barcelona play, No, even better. If we were going to watch Barcelona, the football team, do their training session. And sometimes you see these really cool videos on YouTube of Barcelona training. And sometimes they're doing crazy stuff, like Messi takes it around everybody and the manager and the physio and goes and puts it in those tiny goals that they practice with, the little ice hockey goals. I can tell you for sure they're not doing that all the time. When Barcelona start their training, they're doing the little games, the little side passes. What's it called? That little game where two people are in the middle and the others try to pass it around them. They're practicing basic stuff. It's the same with VBA coding. We're just talking about a skill here. So we're doing our little side passes here. Here we're talking about the rudiments. Here we're talking about the fundamentals. We've got to build that foundation. So I hope you're not listening to me jabber on. I hope you've been practicing. You've been playing with this example. Okay, let me know in the chat how you're getting on. Steve says it worked. Excellent. Make sure we do those celebrations. Pravin, welcome Pravin. Saying hi a lot from your videos. Thanks a lot. I wanted to ask one question. Can I put a variable range command, range a variable? Will this work? Okay, I'm not sure about that, Pravin, but tomorrow we are introducing variables. And if you have no idea what a variable is, don't worry. We're going to dig into it tomorrow. That's when we're really getting into our computer programming, I would say. Yeah, and Jasmine has a good idea for continuing this exercise. Yeah, I like that idea, Jasmine. Yeah, and it's up to you. Continue this exercise. Try some more complex stuff. Eduardo, welcome. Welcome, Eduardo from Madrid. And Lee is saying piggy in the middle here. Right, there we go. So basic arithmetic here. So let's introduce something new. What if I wanted to, let's just go back to 1 here. If I wanted to change the value in this cell to 2, the value in A1, change it to 2. You'll say to me, Chris, that's easy. That's what we did first. Very simple syntax. Okay. But slightly different this time. Rather than just changing it to 2, I want us to increment the value up by 1. In other words, if I click the macro, it's going to change to 2. But if I click it again, I want it to change to 3. Click it again, change to 4. So we've got this idea of incrementing up. Incrementing up, one of our fundamental VBA building blocks. So it's a subtly different challenge. How does the syntax work? Now, I know we've got some members in the chat. This should be easy stuff for the members, but have a think about that. Logically, how would that syntax work? And does anybody know? Steve says, I'm appreciating your philosophical musings as you let me catch up with the coding. Absolutely. We've got 30 days of coding philosophy. We're doing it all here. Eduardo says, thanks for this series of videos. Your way of explaining makes it easy to understand. Good. What do you think in the chat? This is one of our fundamental VBA building blocks. Let's go ahead and start the routine. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you the answer yet. And let's just say increment up. And I'll mess about here. See if we can get an answer in the chat. Let's actually see if we can get this answer from the chat. Get you guys working here. So increment up, and I'm going to go ahead and put a button in the sheet. So developer, insert, and then clicking the top left option, not the ActiveX controls, they get complicated, just the form controls. Hold down the Alt key here. And that allows me to snap the button to the grid. And then Excel is going to pop up a dialog box. Excel is saying, okay, mate, you've put a button in. What do you want me to do when you click this button? Which macro do you want me to run when you click this button? You remember, right, at the beginning of the stream, I said we use informative names for macro. Already, we're feeling the benefits of that organization because we've got macros listed here. I want increment up. There we go. Just got button 1 there. Let's have some informative text here. And let's go ahead and make this a bit bigger as well. Alt-H-O-H on the Windows PC. And then let's change this to up. And again, just being informative, directive, if you like, for the user. You know, we don't want button 1. That's not helpful text, is it? Button 1. We want the text on the button to give the user a sense of what the button's actually going to do. Now we do have some good contributions here. So Steve is liking Biana's contribution. which is range A1 equals range A1 plus 1. Loving this idea, Bjarne. Loving this idea. Right. We've got one of our VBA building blocks. So, have you got a Post-it? These are my notes for the stream. Get rid of those. You're going to need a Post-it note now. We're going to write down our VBA building block. Just like this. And I'm going to say A equals A plus 1. Now, this is a fundamental construct we're going to see coming up time and again. There it is. A equals A plus 1. So make sure you're doing this. Where shall I put this? Behind me somewhere? There we go. Okay, we've got our building block there. A equals A plus 1. So Bjarne, very good. How did you know that, Bjarne? Are you a programmer, or maybe you've been following some of our videos? I'm not sure. But let's see this in action. So I'm going to go ahead here. So what's our target range? Well, it's still A1. But here's the difficult thing. We've got the target range, the object we're working with, could be a range, could be something else. We've got it repeated. And this is the A equals A plus 1 idea. A equals A plus 1. There we go. So range A1 equals range A1. That's not going to do anything. That's just going to make A1 equal to A1. So we just put a plus 1 in here. What about this? Only a subtle change in syntax. Whoa, you're not even seeing any of this, are you? There we go. Apologies for that. I know in the chat in a second you're going to say, take us back to the screen. Right, so we're back on the screen now. So I kept all that secret from you, but you just need to copy it out now, and then we can rock and roll. Yeah, Lee's saying in the chat, Excel screen has gone the video. It's just you, mate. Sorry about that, Lee. You should be back with the Excel screen now. Hello, David, by the way. David's just tuned in. David's one of our members. So have you been able to do this? And let's see what happens when we play this code. So remember, this code is allocated to this button. So I'm going to go ahead now, moments of truth. And then we can see the value increasing there. Alt-H-F-S on the Windows PC. Let's make this a bit bigger. Alt-H-A-C, Alt-H-A-M. Take us back to the screen. Yeah, sorry, everybody. Should be back on the screen now. Right, I'm just incrementing up now. Is that working? Going to get the code back on. So you should be able to get that working. Let me know in the chat. There's a serious delay on the stream today. I think it's about 30 seconds or more. So now my question is, what if we wanted to increment down? So it should be a fairly simple extension of what we've already got. And again, we can practice some coding skills there. So we could go ahead and begin a new routine and type it all out, and I might say it's good practice for you just to type it all out. But in this case, we can copy and paste something that we already have. So Control-C on the Windows PC, Control-V. Make sure you change the title, well, rather the name of the macro, increment down. And then what is the change to the syntax here? What's the change to the syntax going to be? Good, and Jasfin is with us here. -1 instead of +1. Okay, so we've now got an increment down macro. Just to test this, position the cursor inside the macro and then hit the play button. What was the shortcut for that on the Windows PC? It's the F5 key. So I'm playing the macro now, and we can see we're incrementing down. That's all good, but it would be nice to have a button in the sheet to trigger that increment down macro. Then we could go up and down. So let's select the button. I've right-clicked on the button here. Hold down the Control key to duplicate the button. Hold down the Alt key, and we can see the button's going to slot in quite nicely just here. Now we want to assign a different macro to that button. If I click on this button now, what's going to happen? Which macro does this button trigger? excuse me. Yeah, which macro does this button trigger? Well, it's still connected, or it still triggers the increment up macro. So we want to edit the text, change this to down. Then let's right click. How do we change the macro that's assigned to a button? It's a good question. So right click, assign macro, and then again, we're seeing the list of possible macros that we could call. Now, these macros are exactly the same as what we have in the VBA editor. That's all Excel is doing, going to the VBA editor and indexing, compiling a list of all the possible macros there. And here we click increment down. Okay, so now we should be able to go up here, should be able to go down. And there we go. Very nice. We can even go below 0 here. Good. So let me know in the chat. Good to see people following along. It really helps me if even just in the chat you say, I'm getting it, or I'm following, or I can understand. That gives me good feedback. Great one, Steve. Steve's got can't execute in break mode. I think we covered this briefly yesterday. So if at the top of your VBA editor, it says break. So Steve, have a look at the top of the VBA editor. It will say break there, and probably one of the lines is highlighted in yellow. This happens all the time when you're programming. It's Excel saying, listen, I don't understand the syntax. Can we fix this? In fact, Excel's not being that polite. Excel's saying, I'm not doing anything until you fix this, mate. That's what Excel is actually saying. So this is the equivalent of having the bonnet up on your car, and you've got to fix it. You can't drive it off with the bonnet up. So we're in break mode. So the idea is you fix your syntax and then hit the reset button. Hit the reset button. So this is what you need to do, Steve. Hit the reset button. You can see we're no longer in break mode. We've lost break from the top of the VBA editor, and there's no yellow highlighting. So Excel should be ready to rock and roll now. And I can see our macros are working there. Good stuff. So plenty of positive feedback in the chat. Thank you guys. Pravin says, I'm a structural engineer by profession. Your videos are a big help for creating my own spreadsheets. Thank you, Pravin. Great to hear. It's great to hear what people are getting up to. I know there's plenty of guys from the FDS community here, so we're interested in football. Pravin is a structural engineer. Steve is a lecturer, of course, over in Berlin. So let me know what you're doing with Excel and, you know, what your job is, how it's helping your work. Right, final challenge today. I'm going to put the button in here, and then you're going to get the code. And let me tell you straight away, I want to increment up by a value of my choice. Increment up by a value of my choice. So let's have a cell here, and let's say choice. So I want to put a value in this cell, say 3, and then have a new button. Click the button, and it will go up. Our value in A1 will go up by the value I put in this cell here. So if you're watching on replay, definitely stop the video. Try to do this yourself. It's just putting together what we've learned today, the syntax we've learned today. How about this one? And let me know in the chat. Good. Steve says his button is working now. Thank you guys for saying that you're following along. So let's have a new routine. Let's call it custom up. Okay. And then how might we do this? You know, everything we need conceptually, we've covered today. You just got to combine some things together. So definitely have a little think about it. Okay. So our target range, of course, is A1. Then how about this? Where are we going now then? Okay, so what's our custom choice here? A7. Okay, but of course I haven't quite got this right. Let's go back to our building block. Okay, it's a slight variation on this concept. Here we've got A equals A plus 1. This is more A equals A plus B. There we go. So again, we've got this idea of the same thing repeated, the same object repeated. And then we can copy paste and A7. A7 is the cell that contains our choice value. Okay, I'm going to use an inverted comma. These green notes are called annotations. So Excel ignores those when it executes the code, but for the programmer, they allow us to keep notes in the VBA editor so we can understand what the hell is going on. Very helpful working collaborative when you're working collaboratively with other people. Helpful when you're working on your own. And I've done so much coding in my time. I've got lots of notes in my files. They really help me understand what's going on. So let's say increment up by user chosen value. Okay, there we go. So then let's get another button. So holding down the control key there, then using the alt key, slot this button in, edit text. Let's say custom up, and then got to remember to assign the correct macro because we duplicated a button. The button is still going to run the same macro that its parent button was running, if that makes sense. The original button that this button was created from. And let's go for custom up. Again, the informative names for the macros are really helping me here. So custom up. Now we've got 7, now we've got 10. Okay, if I make this 1, then what happens? Then we've got 11, 12. If I change this to 10, then what happens? Custom up. Okay, finally. And again, I'm going to put the button in, and I want you to do the coding here. And let's say edit text, and let's say reset here. How do we change the text displayed on the button? So right click on the button, and then edit text. Right click and edit text. There we go, Ian, thank you. Should be the same on Mac, Steve. I know you're a Mac user. Maybe the family can club together at Christmas and buy you a proper PC. I'm not sure. I'm only joking. I'm not really anti-Mac. It's only a joke. Anyway, you Mac users, let me know if you're following along. Finally, reset. So I want to reset this value to 0, the value in A1. So how might we do that? Again, an informative name for the macro. Say reset to 0. Then what's the syntax going to be here? There we go. And then again, got to make sure we assign the correct macro. Right click, assign macro, and then reset to 0. So we've actually created 6 macros here. You know that volume of code is not necessarily an indicator of quality, but we have created 6 little computer programs there. So maybe that's some kind of sense of achievement. So if I now hit reset, we're down to 0. So I can go up and go down and go up by a custom value and then reset everything to 0. Let me know in the chat. Any final questions? Any final questions in the chat? But that's the end of our second session here. And we've been working with ranges. Excel gives us an infrastructure to work with. You might like to think of it as a canvas for us to create beauty on, which is kind of how I think of it really. So we've got to be able to manipulate these cells. That's what we've been practicing today, just the basic ideas, Remember, we've got A equals A plus 1. This is going to be useful working with ranges, also useful tomorrow when we start working with variables. What on earth is a variable? As with many things in Excel, its name doesn't give us much idea about what it actually does. God, Bill Gates and his mates naming these things, hey. But we're going to dig into variables tomorrow. So let me know. Any final questions in the chat? Steve says you may have created 6. I've created 2. Remember, you can work along with the replay. So all of these videos just going to sit on YouTube. I've got no plans to take these videos down. So make sure you work along with the replay. I may go a bit too fast sometimes. Sorry about that. You can always go back, just scrub back through the video and make sure you understand what's going on. Stanislav says, thank you very much. I'm learning English and VBA double course. Good to have you with us, Stanislav from the UK. I hope you're going to be with us for 28 more days. Bjorn says, I'm looking forward to select ranges from multiple sheets. Okay, Bjorn, I'm not quite sure if we're going to get exactly there, but we're certainly going to do some more advanced stuff. Jorgen says, good lesson. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you, General. Good to see you. Lee says, Chris, can you be a member without joining Members Monday? As on the Monday, I have other commitments, i.e. do I join as a 99 pence member? Yes, with the membership. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Lee, because let's have a look. Let's talk about membership here. So here, yeah, this is Members Monday, and you get a weekly live stream with me. We're going to go into more detail than we do today. It's a very practical session, You know, I'm doing projects every day. And then at the end of the day, certainly on Mondays, I'm going live with our membership, talking about how to do this kind of programming, but also in a more practical sense. How do you make it work in a project context? How do you communicate spreadsheets, interact with clients? So talking about all the practical stuff as well. You get membership of a Facebook group, and you get our Members Monday Content Navigator. So I index everything we talk about in Members Monday. I index. So for each stream, there's maybe 10 or 12 things we talk about. That's all in a spreadsheet. You can click on one of the cells and it will take you via your internet browser to that stream and to the point in the stream where we're talking about that thing, so that you get this content navigator. You get to be part of a community. So this is one membership option, but Lee is mentioning in the chat, there's selected member posts, the £1 option. You're very welcome to get involved. I just put some posts just to those members occasionally, you know, not particularly frequently, but I really appreciate your support. If you want to get involved with the £1 option, more information about membership, click join below this video. You can see the whole membership, all of the details about the membership there. Let's see any other questions in the chat. Greg said, this is so useful. Thanks, Chrissy. Cheers, Greg. Really good to see you. See you tomorrow. Gary says, top man. Thank you, Gary. Andrew says, good session. Thanks, Chrissy. Chrissy spreadsheets. Cheers, Andrew. Eduardo. Okay. Let's see if we can debug Eduardo's before we go. B6 dot value range A1 equals range A1 plus X. N sub. What is the error? Can't see any problems there. I'll be very careful with the spelling there, Eduardo, maybe. And you don't need to use a variable there with what you're trying to do. You don't need to use a variable there, Eduardo. Okay, there we go. Good. Yeah, somebody said in the chat that should work. Yeah, I can't see anything particularly wrong with the code there. Okay then, guys, that's all today. Thank you so much for watching. And we are 2 days in. We're 2 days in. I mean, we haven't created anything kind of real in Excel yet, but don't worry, we're just building this foundation in Excel VBA. So be patient and have some fun with it. So go away, play with this code. You've got to tap into that, how you were as a child when you used to just play with stuff. That's the way. Play is practice, and practice is progress. If you're consistent, you stay with me. I'm confident you're going to make real progress with Excel VBA. I'll see you tomorrow.